Hello, everybody. So this session is related to one of the critical protocol that is DNS. Either we are working as a network security engineer, cloud security engineer, cyber security engineer, even as a software developer. If you want to become good security architect in the future, in upcoming future, which is my goal basically, we should aware about the DNS. Because if you're going to design the network, we should also aware about DNS. Okay, because without DNS we can't achieve anything on the internet, we can't access anything from the internet. Okay, so DNS play a vital role in the any company, any organizations. Okay, DNS is itself one of the big topics, guys. This is not possible to cover all the things, but I am trying to cover, and definitely your foundation will be clear from this lecture. Also, I'm planning to build on courses. In future we can buy my courses, and I'm going to explain DNS from beginning to end. Also, with the help of some live examples in lab, we'll try to deploy one Windows server where we can make that server as a DNS. Okay, so basically, guys, whenever let's come to the topic. So whenever basically we access anything from the we can say like browser, for example, facebook.com, youtube.com. So how it's work, guys? Okay, so if you are accessing any facebook.com, so first part is DNS lookup happen. First part is always DNS lookup happen. Okay, because uh IP is required. IP is required to communicate to the actual server because okay because we can't communicate directly with the help of URL in FQDN, we can say. Okay, so DNS is basically domain name system or someone called domain name service. It's work to convert URL to IP, we can say FQDN to IP and IP to URL. So mostly it's used to convert your domain name to IP address. For example, www.facebook.com. So we need IP. Client need IP to communicate to the facebook.com server. So for that DNS resolution required. Like what is the IP of facebook.com, www.facebook.com, what is the IP address? Who give that IP address? DNS. Okay, so that is the reason DNS play vital role in any applications. Okay. So I said like DNS stand for domain name system, domain name service. Okay. So how does it work, guys? Let's consider one example. For example, from your PC, this is your PC, consider it. You are trying to search f5.com. So your local DNS cache, your system is trying to find the IP details of f5.com in its local DNS cache. Okay. So let me show you also CMD. If you run this command, ipconfig / display DNS. So there is huge cache. I'm just doing control C. There is huge cache where our system has kept the record of every applications. For example, agent.api, strata.detail.coms. And we can see so more here. For example, arc.zoom.us. So what is the IP address? This is the IP address. So this is called local cache, guys. Okay, your systems keep uh, in their record, okay, as a cache. So for examples, you have trying to access f5.coms, your system is going to check its local cache. Okay, what is the IP of f5.coms? It is like entry is available. If yes, it is going to directly communicate with the f5.com IP address. Like DNS local happen, then TCP handshake will happen, then SSL handshake, then actual data transfer happen between client and server. For example, there is no any entry, there is no any cache for f5.coms. So your system, your machines, your laptop is sending the recursive query to your local DNS server, which is available in your company, in your production. And what is recursive query, guys? And iterative query? There are two types of query in DNS. One is recursive query, second one is iterative query. Recursive query means, for example, I want IP address f5.coms, and our local server or local DNS server or any server is going to send that IP address of that f5.com server. Means I need result of that application. I need IP of that applications directly. That is called recursive query. हिंदी में थोड़ा सा बता देता हूँ. आपने f5.coms का आईपी जानना चाहा और आपको सर्वर डायरेक्ट उसका आईपी दे दिया, दैट इज कॉल्ड रिकर्सिव क्यूरी. एंड व्हाट इज इटरेटिव क्यूरी इज, guys? See, if want to know IP address of f5.coms, in that case, your local DNS server is not able to provide the IP address. It is going to send that request to root domain server. Okay. So root domain server is going to tell, okay, I don't have IP address of f5.com, but I can tell we need to approach to .com server. Maybe they have the details. So iterative queries guide, it is not going to provide the IP address directly, but it will point you to go to this direction, go to this person. That is called iterative query. And 99% of the cases, iterative query happen from your local DNS server to the root domain server, root DNS server, or top level domain server, top level domain server, or we can say authoritative server. Okay, recursive query only happen in between your local systems, your laptop, and your local DNS server. So that is the difference between recursive query and iterative query. So maybe someone asked in the interview also, but this is very, very important to understand the difference between recursive query and iterative query. Okay, I hope you guys understand the difference between recursive queries and iterative queries. Okay. Okay, so let's continue here. So local system and not the cache web5.coms. There is no any IP details. It send recursive query to the local DNS server which is available in your company. Local DNS server also not the details of the f5.coms. The local DNS server is going to send the recursive query to the root DNS server, guys. Okay, root DNS server is for example f5.coms. So after f5.com, there is always one dot is there, but it will not basically visible, guys. Okay, but we should consider like that because this is how DNS design. So your local DNS send query, recursive query to the root DNS server for the record for f5.coms. So root DNS server is telling, okay, I don't have record of f5.com, but we should approach to .com server, and it is going to provide the details of .com server. Then again, our local DNS server is going to send the query to the .com server. Hey, .com server, I need the IP address of f5.com. .com server is saying, sorry, I don't have IP address, but I can point. We should go to the name server, and its IP address is 104.219.10 somethings. And basically, this is the authoritative servers. Authoritative server basically keep the actual details, actual IP of the applications, like f5.coms, where actual f5.com is hosted, we can say in short. Then your local DNS server is going to again send the recursive query to the authoritative DNS servers. An authoritative DNS server has the details of the IP address of f5.coms. Then it is going to provide the IP address of the f5.coms, and its IP is 104.219.1110.168. Okay. Then our local DNS server is going to maintain this entry in cache file and then set that IP address to the local machine, your laptop. Okay. Then this your laptop is going to communicate with the IP address 104.219.110.168. Okay. And this process happened in the backend very quickly, guys. So this is how DNS work. Okay. I hope you guys understand about the recursive query, iterative query, and how DNS lookup happen. Okay. So once client got the IP address, it is going to communicate with f5.coms over the internet. Okay. There are some terminology, guys. Okay. Like domain name. What is domain name? Like f5.com, for example, f5.com is a domain name. And why F5 is mentioned? Because it is owned by F5 company, we can say. Subdomain means before F5.coms, whatever you're putting, before F5.coms, you are putting dot, and before dot, we are putting anything that is called subdomains. For example, F5.coms is the domain. And we are using dot here and using support.f5.com, that is subdomain. I hope it is clear for everyone. Okay, so f5.com is the domain. And after dot, whatever you are putting, that is called subdomains. Okay, so there are DNS hierarchy, guys, like root level, top level, second levels, and subdomain levels. I have already explained you, like root DNS server, top level domain server, and authoritative DNS servers, right? So that is the same things. Okay, and it is very, very important to know some common DNS record type, because if you are working as any whatever profile I mentioned in the beginning, you should aware about the records also. So I'm going to explain a little bit in depth also, and then we'll close this session. And also I'm going to show some example, live example, how DNS work, guys. And I'm trying to keep this session short as as it's possible. So there is record A record, guys. What is A record? So A record triple A slash four times A records. Four times A means basically it's for IP version 6. And so what is A records basically, guys? So A records, also known as host records, are the central records of DNS. These records link to a domain to an IP address. So A record is basically, guys, for example, your domain is www.facebook.com, and we have binded this with one of the IP address, for example, 10.10.10.10.10.10. So this is your A records. Directly binding your domain to the IP address, that is called A record. Okay. I hope it is clear for everyone. Okay. What is CNAME, guys? CNAME is basically canonical name. Canonical name, guys. It is also the types of DNS records. For understanding CNAME, let's come here. So common name, guys, CNAME record, it's a canonical name record, is a type of DNS records, and that's let you create an alias for a domain name. For example, you want to create some alias, there is your domains, for example, facebook.com, facebook.coms. But if you want to customize that, for example, we created some alias like www.facebook.com, sort.facebook.coms. And if you want like someone trying to access www.facebook.coms, it will point to the actual domain, that is facebook.coms. So we can create multiple alias and that you can point towards our actual domains. For that, CNAME comes in the picture. CNAME records comes in the pictures. I will try to explain with help example also. If you want, for examples, if you want some, there is one application which is hosted behind one of the load balancer in company. Okay. If you want, and we are using as some web firewall in the front. If you want anyone try to access that application, first the traffic should be hit on our web for the threat prevention kinds of things, for to avoid the attacks kinds of things. In this scenario, we can use canonicals record, guys, and we can redirect our traffics. Okay. Let's understand with the help of examples. Let's say you want to subdomain shop.example.com to point to a store.example.net. Okay, so this is your actual domain, and we have created some alias records for these actual domains. So instead of creating separate configuration, guys, you can use CNAME record to alias shop.example.com to store.example.com. So if anyone try to access shop.example.coms, it will DNS will fetch the details from store.example.net. It is not going to take the details of shop.example.com. If you are trying to access shop.example.coms, it will point to the store.example.com, sorry, store.example.net. This means I just mentioned anytime someone visits shop.example.com, guys, the DNS system will automatically redirect them to the store.example.net. So you are accessing shop.example.com, but DNS process happen from the store.example.net. Store.example.net, which will then result to its IP address. Okay, so we can redirect the traffics. Okay, we have one applications, but if we want to create some multiple alias to provide to different teams, we can create CNAME records. And if anyone trying to access that application, it will point to the actual canonical name. Or in this case, in this case, store.example.net. Okay, and we can use CNAME to redirect your traffic. Okay, I hope common name records is clear for everybody. Okay, so we have done a record and CNAME, that is canonical name records. Then we have name server record. Name server record, I will mention it, on the top, guys. Name server record have the details of actual applications, like ff.com is binded with IP address. Okay, so that is called name server records. MX record, that mail exchange records, basically it is also type of DNS record, guys. So for examples, let's understand here. So an MX record work by directing email traffic to the appropriate mail server for a domain. Okay, when someone needs an email to an address, like, yes, we'll try to understand here. Someone try to send one email to user@example.coms. So the sending mail server, the mail server is going to send this query to the DNS server. What is the mail MX record, for example, dot coms. Okay, who is the server which is handling the traffic, who's handling the example.com related query, example.com related email. So that record is available in DNS, and it is added on the basis of priority. So less priority will be the uh, we can say like consider as a one, and which MX record has less priority, that will consider on the top, and later we'll consider another, we can say like records. For example, in MX record we have created, for example, example.com, so we have put priority 10, and again example.com we have put priority 20. So 10 will be look first. If 10 will be down, we can say it is going to be considered, and it is going to pick the information for 20. Okay. So the MX record contain the name of the mail server, guys, and priority numbers. So if there are multiple MX records, the server with the lowest priority number is contacted first. So whatever server has the lowest priority, it is going to contacted by first from the sender server, we can say. Okay. Sender server will ask the detail from DNS server. DNS server is going to provide the server details. We can say like a mail server with the priority numbers. So lesser priority will be contacted first, guide. Okay. If that server is unable, the next one is tried in order of priority. Once a connection is made to the mail server, guys, the email is delivered to the recipient inbox. Okay. So this system ensures that email delivery is reliable and can handle server failures. So this is how mail server, we can say MX records work in DNS. Okay. So it is very, very important. It is very, very critical to understand common DNS record types like A record, CNAME, canonical name records, name server record, and MX record. I hope you guys understand this point. If not, please try to comments and I will try to answer it whenever I will free. Okay. Before closing it, let's jump on one of the Wireshark capture, guys. So I have done here. So for example, our PC is trying to sending query. Hi DNS, I need IP address of becomes.government2.coms. Okay. So this is our laptop IP address 192.168.1.107, and it is asking to the DNS server. This is my local DNS server 192.168.1.1. So I need IP address of becomes.government gbt2.coms. So it is going to be response here. If you double click, if you go on the answer, guys, it is saying okay, this is the IP address 142.251.42.67. So you can analyze DNS like that in Wireshark also. And it is very, very important if you want to go depth dive on any of the protocol, guys, try to learn the PK file. Okay. So I hope this video, this session was useful for you guys related to knowledge. If you really like my efforts, please share, like, subscribe as much as possible. Let's meet on the next session. Thank you very much.